welcome everyone to a Universal Citizens Live Friday webcast. Once again, I am joined by David Ellis with a special guest. David, welcome to the show. You're muted. We need to unmute David.
Yes. Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How is everything today? We have a very special guest today, actually.
Yes, we do. We are about to have a very special webcast. We are kicking off some very special shows, and we want people to be prepared for what's coming for.
Yes. So we have Christine Borshnek from Saskatchewan, Regina, Saskatchewan. Christine, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi,
Super
Christine.
excited. Hello.
How are you? How are you today?
I'm fantastic. I'm nervous to be here with all of you amazing people, but super happy to be here.
Excellent. So, Christine, today we're going to talk about all different kinds of topics, but the main topic we're going to be talking about is something that you have a coaching certification in, and that is human sexuality. Okay, so you want to tell us how you feel about human sexuality? Is it something that you feel others should learn?
I absolutely do. Human sexuality is an area that so many people are repressed in, and there's so much shame around. And it really is the life force of everything. And so it's near and dear to my heart. I've become a erotic blueprint coach with a very dear mentor, Jaya Ma, and just really excited to share that.
Excellent. Tell us about Erotic Blueprint straight off the bat.
Well, it's just like the 5 love languages. So with the 5 love languages, everybody has a different way that they interpret love. And it's the same with sexuality. So our nervous systems are set up in a way that we have 5 different erotic blueprints. And everybody is different. Everybody has a different way that they're configured. And so we have something called the energetic, which is something that if someone is energetic, they love tease, anticipation, longing, stillness. They have superpowers of being able to have full-bodied orgasms, altered states. They are extremely intuitive lovers. They have an ability to be able to feel the partner's emotion. Some of the shadows of that would be they are very sensitive, so they can short circuit very, very easily. So, have you ever been in the throes of something and be really, really turned on, and then, your lever goes straight for your genitals and your whole system just short circuits, and it goes from total arousal to total shutdown. And so that's the energetic. We have a sensual, that's the other blueprint, where they are turned on by anything to do with senses, touch, taste, sounds, sights. They really do bring beauty to the world. So that's like just a ton of fun. They are the folks that, everything will be beautiful. The room will be lit just right. The music is just right. Everything is very almost like they talk kind of chocolatey. Their superpowers, the things that they bring is the beauty to the whole erotic experience. It's usually very beautiful, very lovely. They can have orgasms by tasting something. They can have an orgasm with the softest of touch behind the knee. And of course, if you don't have any of these kinds of orgasms, that's just fine. There's nothing wrong, but it's just talking to what is possible. The the shadow of the sensual is such that they're in their head. So you'll be having this really beautiful erotic experience with somebody, and you're wondering if your ass is jiggling, or you have cellulite, or, you know, if your genitals smell, or, you know, you're just about to orgasm and you get a whiff of your partner's breath and your orgasm vanishes. And so that's the sensual shadow. You have the sexual blueprint, which is geared directly for what society says is sex. So it's the genitals, nudity, straight to the point, coming, and it's pretty straightforward. It's really what the whole society says is the normal sexual experience. Their superpowers, they're easy. There's no complication. They go from 0 to 60 like that. They're typically folks that have really high libidos. And so it's just really simple. They bring a really non-complicated, and I don't mean complicated in a bad way, but it's just very simple. Their shadows to that is that they think nothing's wrong. If it's not simple, then there's something wrong with their partner, because it always worked for every other partner they've ever been with. So they're least likely to say that they have any problems. They go straight for the orgasm so they can miss all this beauty and the richness of what is really available and what's on the table in all these other blueprints. So that's the sexual. We have
I got a question from the chat room, kind of fits with what you're saying. This is from Sarkis, and a really amazing guy. How can women regularly get rid of sexual energies taken from men they have been intimate with, especially some of the old imprints?
I think that's a really great question. And I think there's different ways to do that. One of the ways that I have found is the jade egg practice. Has been really kind of a neat way that I have found, because that's true. We do get imprints, and they do land in the actual tissues of our womb space, as well as our whole energetic space. And so, if it's the internal, I really like the jade aid practice, where, you know, you're really allowing the whole organism to act as a filtration system, and allowing the jade egg that is on the inside to act as like a magnetism, or like a little area that pulls anything that is not of you into the jade egg, so that when you dispel it, it is no longer within the actual system. Of course, there's other energetic tools that you can use in terms of just like general clearing.
What would be a general clearing technique that women could apply to themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. So even when you're sitting there and you can feel the imprint of somebody else, or you can feel that there's just something off, or you have some remnants, just even imagining a big, huge magnet above your head, and just allowing anything that is not of yourself to be pulled up into this kind of magnet, or this bigger energetic ball of white light. Another way that I've seen people do that is going out into nature and actually having your womb space connected to Mother Earth, and allowing everything to filtrate through. That's always been a really beautiful thing.
Tree sex works very good too for a lot of women, to really just sit your butt down on the roots of a tree, or get into a big hugging type of a tree and hold yourself there, and know that your womb space can grow and connect to the tree just like your heart. Mm-hmm. It's an ancient practice as old as indigenous people that have been out there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're muted, David.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to chime in here. The Rosicrucians and the Freemasons have an exercise called a stimulator, which is basically concentrating on the soles of the feet and bringing your concentration and awareness and letting it travel up the body as a filtration system. It basically shakes off anything that is not you because of a frequency or awareness. And we have actually been, they have actually been using that for a number of years for a number of things, because especially before ritualistic work, this is something that is used to shake off anything that is not you, because things can go horribly wrong in ritualistic work if you go in with baggage, so to speak. So, Christine, we were at the sexual. Tell us more.
So that was pretty much wrapping up the sexual. So then we get into the kink. And the kink is really, there's so many myths around the kink about how, well, there's just so many myths. But really, kink is just whatever is taboo for you. So if somebody has been doing missionary for ever and ever, and you all of a sudden want to try something different, that's taboo. That's kink. And so there's two different kinds of kink. One is psychological, so it's any kind of power play, power over, power under, surrender, control. And then there's actually the physical constraint, or anything that's happening physically. So there's two different kinds of kink. The really beautiful thing about kink is that you can do anything within kink, and there's such a wide variety. It can be so, from something so small to something so grandiose, and it's so creative. You can do anything. You can play. You can do different. You can pretend to be somebody that you're not, so that you can really allow all these parts of yourselves to wake up. You can go into subspace. You can do healing of trauma. You can do
What is subspace? Tell the audience, because we have a few people in the audience that are going to be like, subspace? Like, we have a few Trekkies in the audience, so please tell us what subspace is before people get the wrong idea.
I think actually you would be better at answering that one with subspace. I have a limited definition of subspace.
So subspace is submissive space. Okay, it's the space in your mind where submission happens, surrender, submission. And a lot of people are not familiar with that. And if you're a man, you probably have never been in subspace at all. Okay, so if you're a man and you're one of those macho men, you're probably not thinking, I'm not going to go into that realm because I am the predator, which is one of the myths we're going to deconstruct today, by the way. Okay, the myth of man is predator, must be stalking, and woman is prey, like, you know, the National Geographic type scenes where the lion is running down the gazelle. You know these scenes, right, Andrew?
Yes, I do.
Not that we. Right. So we want to deconstruct that myth. Why isn't it the other way around? Why aren't women football tackling men in the streets?
I think it's shame. I think that we have so many years of our whole lineages of not being allowed to do that. We've been called sluts. We've been not given our own ability to really hold and own our own sexuality. When we've had, when, you know, you think about even in high school, you know, if I was to have a whole bunch of different partners, I was the slut, whereas a man was a stud. And so it really is, I think it lays a lot with shame and a lot of generational trauma.
And we would really like for this bullshit to stop, because honestly speaking, there are a lot of women out there with tigers inside themselves regarding sexuality, but they walk around in sheep's clothing until some poor man runs across them, and yeah, they're like, where did all this come from?
Most definitely. Absolutely. And I think once we actually know how our own core erotic blueprint is stacked, then we start to be able to see that we're actually so uniquely designed. And so every one of our tigress looks different but we have been shown that only the sexual blueprint is okay. You know, we are supposed to be ready to be on right away and to have sex and to just be willing to go all the time. And for so many of us, men included, they're not just all sexual. That is a myth.
Many men are afraid of the experience and actually are in a subspace being led by the woman through empathy at times. And many men lose their empathy and end up doing something that's not empathetic, which is why lots of friction occurs when people aren't really lined up to each other.
Yes, actually, I want to just chime in here because one of the precepts of Tantra is that everybody becomes 50-50. Okay.
Yes.
So let me explain this concept to the audience. And Christine, I want your take on this. So in the Kama Sutra, for those of you who've read the original text, what was required is that everyone becomes 50-50, 50 meaning more on the male side, 50 on the female side. And so if you have percentages like this, you can adapt to any one person's percentage distribution. So you have some people who are 70% male, 30% female, and some people who are 60% male, 40% female, or the other way around. And they try to interact with each other, and there is friction. There is friction in terms of sexuality. You want to know what the Kama Sutra says? Before you think about getting a date or going out with someone, yes, you had to master 64 different skill sets. Okay, so everybody in the audience is like, what? Why would I do that? They're not really difficult skill sets. They're like reading and writing and singing. Some of them are like that, meditation, martial arts or something. What it does, it makes you balanced as a human being. Okay, so that when you are engaging with someone in a relationship, whether it be a sexual relationship, whether it be a love relationship, you are a balanced person and you can see both sides of the fence. And these practices brought you into harmony with yourself and made you a balanced individual before you decided to meet other people and interact with them. So Christine was actually talking to us about the love languages. Most people would be predisposed to one love language or another. But Christine, can that change? Can people learn different love languages?
I would say yes. I would say, of course. I say that we have the ability to do that for sure. I think that as our core, we gravitate towards one. But when it comes to the sexual blueprints, we absolutely can start to manifest and morph into all the different blueprints. And so absolutely, I think that it's the growing and it's the expansion of who we are that really allows us to be more well-rounded.
Understood. So how, assuming that you had a coaching client who came to you and the person is completely sexual, married to a sensual person, for instance, and you have identified their sexual blueprint, how do you negotiate this interaction so that you save the marriage and their sexual relationship with each other?
Yeah, and that's really, really common. And so with the sexual person, they're going to be on the sensual person going for genitals all the time and sex all the time, where the sensual is wanting, the more romantic, take me out, let's have supper first, let's have a deep conversation. And so there can really be a disconnect with that. And so it really does come down to what is important for this person, what is important for this person, and where do they meet? Where is that little line where they meet, where they can start to meet each other compassionately and have both needs met. And then from that area, you can start to actually grow out. And so the biggest thing is consent, so that you have safety within the relationship. So the sexual person does not have consent to just be groping, to just be grabbing, to be demanding. And so it really does come down to some conversations and some education and seeing where they overlap.
And what about the cultural barriers that present themselves? Because, you know, there are certain cultures where women are told that anything other than being married to a man and being submissive is slutty behavior. And that's a common barrier in certain kinds of cultures. And we talk about this on the show a lot of the time. Okay. And how can these women who have been suppressed, their mothers have taught them suppression, society, their social circle has taught them suppression, come out of that suppression to become the tigress, so to speak?
I think it's coming back to themselves, because even in a situation like that, they're going to have there's going to be some friction, there's going to be a rub, and so it's not like they can just come
The
out
rub
and
is
start
going to be a rub. That was
there's going to be a rub.
It's
and
just
so
a rub,
I think,
not a tug.
Hilarious. Okay, go ahead, Christine.
well, I think it really does come down to, in my opinion, is really feeling into yourself, because even if there's some societal stuff that's going on, what do you have to do within yourself to remove some of the barriers? What do you, can you find your own self-consent? Most people have never, ever, ever even asked themselves, what is a yes in my own body? What is a no in my body? And so, and that hasn't been afforded to them. And so getting in contact with that so that there's more alignment within their own sovereign self, or their own ability to feel like they have connection to themselves, then and only then can you actually start to come out into the world asking for what your needs are, because you don't even know what they are.
That's a very good point you've just made.
Because you were the larva, then you went through the chrysalis and became the sexual butterfly, willing to transform and accept.
Okay, so we want to move along the lines of the technical aspects of the sexuality and the sex act between people, because I don't believe any other show is going to do this, so we're going to go there, these kinds of places. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
From this point onward, if you are squeamish or you believe sex is taboo, you might want to leave the chat room. But
and for all the future people listening, this is your warning. And for all the current people in the audience, I want you to go to the participants button and click the raise your hand button. This also may be your aroused button, because we are trying to mentally and spiritually arouse you. Why? So you can learn better.
Okay.
We talk about sex all the time on this show. And what we're trying to do now is bring the next level of teaching so you guys can change your relationship with your partners.
So from henceforth, in case you guys are not understanding, we're going to be talking about cocks, pussies. We're going to be talking about all those things you don't like to hear about. But we're going to be talking about them in an educational way, and we're going to be talking about them. We're trying to deconstruct some myths here. Okay, Christine, you ready?
Let's go.
Bigger is better. First myth, tell me. Andrew, you having tea? I'm having a juice box.
Oh dear. Well, bigger is not better. And here's why. Because for so many people, it's the person behind the actual apparatus that's going to get arousal going. So if you have a nice big cock and you just want to jam it in someplace, that has no guarantee that that's going to be arousing. Who's behind it? Is there substance? Is there connection? Is there actually somebody who is caring for the person that they're engaging with? So is bigger better? No, it's not. Does the person who has their cock have the skills? That's what matters. Do they have enough awareness? Yeah. To read their partner.
All right. That's going to be an easy one, but I'm going to throw it out there. Women who do one night stands, are they slutty? Are they not?
Oh God, no, no,
Hmm.
absolutely not, absolutely not. Um, I would question. I always question: is it consensual? If something is consensual and no one's getting harmed, these are erotic beings. This is a vessel that has so much beauty
Hmm.
to express, to feel, to love, to explore. Absolutely not. Uh, yeah, no, not slutty, explorative.
Okay, so I suppose the next sexual myth involves women. Is there such a thing as a vagina that is too loose?
Oh, no, no, of
Please.
course.
There are a lot
Well,
of people in the audience that will not ask this question, and this is not going to be a question that's going to be asked on a lot of shows. So
I
what we
think
want to
this.
know,
Mhm.
go ahead.
I think this is a really really important. Actually, this is near and dear to my heart because I've been hearing that in North America, the number one plastic surgery that is coming up is labiaplasty, and
Hmm.
actual any kind of reconstructions with the vagina. And so this really does have to be deconstructed. There is nothing wrong with the size of openings, um, the placements of where your G spot is, where your clitoris is, how big your clitoris is, how small it is, if the hood covers it, if the labias are super long, if they're short. I mean, they all look completely different. Color. People are actually coloring. They're getting like to take out color off their labias.
Why
It's
is
just
that?
because they don't want they want everything to look picture perfect like in porn. And so that's the big thing. Everything is coming back to what society says is sex, which is this sexual blueprint, which so much of it is porn. And what you see in porn are these, um, these kind of photoshopped, so to speak, genitals. And so color is being removed, length of labias are being removed, openings are being, stitched. Oh, like we are okay just the way we are.
Hmm.
We are so sacred. Everything about us is absolutely sacred and should be treated as such.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what do you have to say to men and women who have a issue with oral sex? Like who don't go down on each other, their partners, and so on. Andrew, do you know that marriages are broken up over that?
Yes, all the time. We have it happen on the show frequently.
So tell us about this issue with oral sex. How does a woman overcome that, in your opinion,
How does a
or a
woman
man?
or and a man? Um, I think there's other options. I think if it's somebody's hard no, it's a hard no because it always
Hmm.
comes down to consent for me. So it's a hard no. But there's
Hmm.
other ways because in these other blueprints, you can do
Hmm.
all kinds of things. So, for example, with somebody who is an energetic,
Hmm.
they do not want direct contact right onto their clitoris. They want somebody to blow on it. They want somebody to hover over it. They want somebody to move their hand over it with no actual touch. That would be an energetic. Somebody who would be a,
Okay,
so it doesn't necessarily mean that they would want that
so
because
don't
that's a
go in
sexual.
on understood. So don't go in on an energetic like someone who hasn't seen food in a month,
Yeah, don't
right?
go down with a bib and a knife. Don't go down with a bib and a knife and a fork.
So it's like so understood. And for the man, the man who is squeamish about going down, there's a whole culture. Like, okay, I'm sitting in Barbados right now during this broadcast. A few miles north of me, there's Jamaica, and in the Jamaican culture, men do not have oral sex with women. It is considered an impure practice. Um, Sucks to be a Jamaican woman, but yeah, it's considered a pure practice. So what do you have to say to men who are squeamish about, you know, licking it before they stick it? Tell me.
Well, I think that's a really good, if it's not religious or if it's not cultural beliefs, then it's the sensual shadow. This smells, this tastes weird, this tastes bad, I don't like it. That's just, it's a sensual shadow. And so are they willing to get over that? Some people aren't. As you said, it leads to divorce.
Is there any way of breaking them in gently? I don't know, like into that kind of practice, because theoretically, it should be something that you would want to give your partner pleasure. So I suppose my question would be, how do you counsel someone who comes in and says, I am absolutely not going down? Of course, my usual reaction would be something like, why? But anyway, tell me, what do you say to someone like that?
I would ask what the resistance is. So is there some kind of, where is the resistance actually stemming from? And then actually do some work with that. So why, is it, who knows? It could be trauma-based. It could be, there's like some old belief, it's some old something running within their head. And so finding out where the actual resistance is. I would also want to find out for the woman, why is it, like, what's important in it for her, so that he actually has some ability to see why it's actually important.
Understood.
And so
communication is important. Yeah.
And if they're
Absolutely.
Jamaican, they should throw some THC oil down there and put it on like barbecue sauce.
Okay, so a lot of people consider oral sex as kinky around the world. Okay, now, in certain religions, for instance, it's kind of actually very funny, and I'm going to actually mention some names here. The Kama Sutra was written by Indians, but when you see the average Indian woman, whether Punjabi and so on, there is a sort of timidity about them. In England, in the you remember the Victorian era, where you had to put the tablecloths all the way down to the floor, so the table legs couldn't be shown because they might turn somebody on you, and that's actually a real truth. In the Victorian era, all tablecloths fell all the way down to the ground because we're not showing any legs. Okay, so this kind of suppression and suppressive behavior, I thought it was probably because they're trying to suppress women's sexuality. Because heaven forbid, if all the women in the world suddenly became sexually liberated, think of the fallout. So, Christine, how do you move women out of that kind of paradigm of suppression or suppressing their sexuality to a more liberated place, if you're a coach? Because I'm sure women come to you and say, I don't know what I like. I don't know how to pleasure myself. Let's talk about self-pleasuring, for instance. Masturbation, because that's going to be part of this show's topic. We go everywhere in this show.
Well, for me personally, with folks that come to see me, I'm also like, I do trauma work. I do a lot of trauma work. That's my longest background, body work and trauma work. So when someone comes to me that has a lot of suppression in their system, it's usually coming from some place. There's usually some trauma on board, at least in my genre of work. And so that's what people come to me for. And so what I do is I help folks remove the trauma from the body and the psyche, and really help that integrate, so that the liberation can therefore come on, so that the thriving of the sexual energy has a place to move. So oftentimes when I'm working with somebody, they don't even feel their pelvis. They don't feel it. It's completely frozen. They don't feel their body. They don't even know what pleasure, some of them don't even know what pleasure even feels like. And so it really is just rewiring the nervous system. because once you remove some of the blocks, there's all this beautiful energy that comes alive, and it wants to go somewhere. Sexual energy wants to move, wants to go somewhere. And so then what are you going to do? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to allow it to come through your voice? Are you going to use it in a creative expression? Are you going to use it to write a book? Are you going to, use it in to have sex with your partner? It's going to want to move. And that's the liberation, is really like coming into your own sovereign self of what do I want to do with this beautiful energy? How do I want to move it in this world? What is my sacred gift here on this planet?
I see. And actually, we have a few questions in the chat. Andrew, do you have any questions for us, sir?
Yes. What is your perspective on today's queer culture, the LGBTQ communities, and those that are gender fluid, sexual fluids, etc.?
It's becoming pretty complicated.
And then we have another one on men who don't enjoy oral sex. And what does that generally come from?
I think that's a really broad question. And I think that it would be very directed to the person who doesn't actually enjoy it. I would ask questions like, what were you taught? What were you taught when you were young about what it meant to have sex even? So many times we like our sexual education often was not talked about, which is the sexual education. It's so veiled. There's so much shame around it. And so to allow this freedom of yourself, it really does, it does take all these shame layers to come off, and to really look at, what lies there, what happens if somebody wants to offer to go down on you. What comes up? Do you get anxious? Does it feel shameful? Do you feel dirty? Do you feel like you're disrespecting your partner for them to do that to you? And here's the thing, it's not a problem unless it's a problem in the relationship. It's not a problem.
Okay.
It's no problem.
So about the gender fluidity. Okay. This has been a topic that has come up in the show before. I just want to say a few things before you answer that. Now, gender fluidity is something that has always been part of our society. It's just been hidden. As of a few years ago, probably 10, 20 years, gender fluidity has come to the surface. It's always been there, okay? The only thing that I see that could be confusing is the terminology, right? And there's some people who are in the senior generations who are not going to learn all the various cisgender and this gender and that gender, okay? Because at the end of it all, I really, myself, personally, I don't like titles a lot of the time. People are people, and it doesn't matter what spectrum, what part of the spectrum they're on, they deserve your respect. But I do believe that there's a point where it becomes a little bit difficult if you're expecting someone who's 80 years old to learn the 32 different genders that are out there. Okay, you have to be realistic with your expectations. They're not going to do that. They grew up in a world where there's male and female and something in between, but they're not quite sure what, because they're not going to learn that. But at 80 years old, stop flogging old people because they don't know the 32 different genders. Because you want to know the truth of the matter? David does not know the 32 different genders, all right? I usually refer to people by name to be safe, okay? I don't know. I guess I'm willing to learn, but I don't know. So please stop beating up on the old people because they come from a place and a time where you guys have not been before. Okay, they can't recognize this world that they're living in. So give them a bit of a break. But with regard to negotiating the sexuality between the 32 different genders, I'm going to probably refer to Christine. So Christine, you have people on a sliding spectrum. Okay, you have LGBTQ and Q2. Actually, Andrew, that Dave Chappelle show that you made me, there's an analogy which everybody should watch. But we're gonna talk about that. That sliding spectrum. You're most likely gonna find people who are bi curious. Okay. How do you counsel them? So you have a man who's married to a woman. The man identifies as heterosexual. The woman is heterosexual, and so she's a woman and he's a man. But the man has secret desires for another man, or the woman has secret desires for another woman, and they're married, and everything against in society is against this sort of extramarital affair. I believe, what is the technical term? Adultery, right? And it's one of the 10 commandments, apparently, where you burn in hell forever and ever. And you have, it sounds like a really big party down in hell, actually. You got guys with pitchforks, you got raves every night, you got the pyrotechnics. Anyway, let's get back to what we're saying. We have. All right. If you are in that situation and you're in a coaching scenario, how do you negotiate that? Because there's going to be some sort of friction there. Tell me, Christine.
Well, it really is a negotiation, and it really does come down to what is the one person who is wanting to explore this part of themselves? What are they going to get out of it? Or what are they hoping to get out of that? And what feels healthy for the opposite person? And so it is it's a very big conversation drawn out over over a while, because there has to be safety and both people feeling like they're being heard with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And to be in a non-shaming environment, it's so important to have a third party, because society comes in and says, this is so whatever the judgments are out there, and so there can be a lot of friction and a lot of people really shutting down. And so you really do need someone that comes in and has the ability to hold a container where there's no shame, and that both people can actually just say what they are needing to say, so that you can start to unfold it in a healthy manner.
Okay. What about women who have been raped before? Okay. Clearly that is a massive trauma to a woman. At a core issues. How can you nurture and bring them back into a sort of central place where they can once again see sex as a positive experience and derive pleasure from that experience?
Mm-hmm. That is always going to be done with a third party as well, someone who has some trauma work on board. Oftentimes you will see somebody who has had sexual trauma in that energetic realm, so they need space, they need safety. So in the energetic blueprint, I'm saying, you'll see somebody who is hyper vigilant, their whole system is turned on, because when we have been violated, our system turns on. We are assessing for danger a lot of the times. So we have to find a way to be able to take the hypervigilance off of the system. And that typically will be with trauma work of some sort. I especially like somatic experiencing, any body-based trauma work where somebody is actually holding the actual human being, the whole being, and holding, the experience and the totality of the whole experience, and not cutting any parts of it off. So once that has been integrated within the system, within the nervous system, then you can start to actually unearth this ability to come out and actually have some curiosity around what sexuality means for them, because it gets really screwed up. Like the body is designed to have pleasure, or designed to feel aroused when we are touched in certain places. So if we have, this is often one of the things, if we have had a violation to our body, we get so confused because we've been violated, but our body has been turned on often somehow, or we've enjoyed it somehow. So it's really confusing. And so, and then that just gets jammed with shame. And so it really helps to work with somebody.
So what do you say to women who, and I'm going to ask this question because it's going to come up somewhere in the chat at some point. So you're a woman and you're married to this man who has sex for, or you're going out, it doesn't have to be married, who has sex for exactly 5 minutes, comes and then falls asleep and is done for the next 2 weeks. So his recovery is bad and his endurance is bad. Advise, Christine. Tell them.
Well, that it breaks my heart first. Yeah. It's just like, oh dear, we have so much to explore within these bodies. A 5-minute non-connected sexual experience where it's happening so infrequently is really it's catastrophic. Oh man.
Catastrophic. Go ahead. Yeah, for some women it is. And
right, and for some it's not.
There are some, people always try to find what is the optimal amount of sex I should be having. Okay, I suppose to each individual it's different. But I do think if you're a healthy, well-fed, you're not in a area where there's famine, you're a healthy, well-fed individual, having sex once a month might be considered a little bit on the low side if you're in a committed relationship. So the first thing I want to ask is, how do you, and Andrew, you could jump in here as well, right? Because honestly speaking, we have men out there who are giving men a bad name.
And we have women out there who are shutting men down because they're not ready to experience, just like the men who are 5 minutes, one pump chumps done, but the same thing, it's generally a relationship issue. I want to hear Christine, but what I want to add into there is, I think on this particular show, you have many more women who shut down on their men who are still quality lovers. And then as they shut down, the man wanes their own sexual energy. And once a month they may be in the missionary position. And one was like, is the garage door closed halfway through the thing? Because their point of reference isn't on each other anymore.
Yeah, it's making the grocery list. That I've actually had that as a client in my office. So I ask her, what do you think about, what do you experience when you have sex? I think about what I forgot at the grocery. If you're having sex and you are thinking about the grocery, there might be a problem. Okay. And you might need to spice up your sex life a little bit. So we want to put the effort in. First of all, let's deal with this one at a time. Let's deal with the men who can't last very long in bed. Christine, advice.
Oh, there's all kinds of things that you can do for that. If they're willing, there has to be willingness on board. So there is all kinds of pelvic floor things that you can do. You have to. The other thing too is you have to know where in their stage they're at. So there's also 5 stages to our own sexuality. We have resting, someone who doesn't want to have sex, they're just in resting. Someone who's in healing, they're healing from something, or they're, then there's curiosity, like the curious, they're wanting to do something, they're wanting to explore, read the books, actually, figure something out. We have the adventurous, they're wanting to carry on and do what they're actually learning. We have the people who want to just like take it into this really altered state thing. And so if somebody is like I love you, Andrew, for saying the one pump chomp. I'm still stuck on that. It just cracks me up. But sometimes people are just locked into a stage and they're healing, and so they're healing, and so they're just kind of going through the motions. That's one
What
option.
what if you're a
Also-
woman and you want to make your man last longer? What do you say to these women? Any techniques you want to bring out here, Christine? Do we
Well-
do we break out the harnesses and the restraints?
I've never had to bring out the harnesses and the restraints quite yet. So everybody that I've worked with, that hasn't been the problem. So
there's another
help you with that.
aspect when men, there are a lot of men that partied their ass off when they were young and did a lot of MDMA, and that actually has flaccidity issues in the future in their head. And a lot of them will have a lot of pre-cum, and then as the pre-cum's going and going, the actual cum is coming out at the same time, and they have no orgasm. So there's a mechanical chemical scenario going on with drugs, especially if you're doing a lot of cocaine and having sex, and a lot of MDMA having sex also. It leaves a taint, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed through arousal alone. Our body are instruments. So many men don't feel the MDMA in their system, therefore they're not getting aroused, or knowing that allows them to stay hard for longer periods of times, which is to the confidence issue at that point. So the woman still has to be a confidence builder, but explorative adventure, and the man has to be willing to do what? Hold the mind down here, not in the woman at that particular moment, because too many men, they're trying to go into the woman right away. Energetically.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I want to just pump in with a little bit of practical advice for the men who have this issue. Kegels are not just for women alone.
Exactly.
Okay. When you think of Kegels, you think of it for women. If you are a man and you intend to be better at sex, you need to learn retention. And what does that look like? It means you have to train your sphincters to obey your commands. And if they do not obey your commands, you have a lot of people walking around with sphincters that are not in the best shape. Why would you go to a gym and exercise your body and not exercise your internal structure? Okay. Both of these things need exercise. So you exercise the muscles to attract women, but the muscles that you actually need to pleasure them are not in shape. What does Kegels look like? I suppose I'll have to do a live test with the audience. What do you think, Andrew? I think we should do a live test with the audience. Everybody in the audience.
It's not a muscle car, men. That is not practicing.
Everybody in the audience, we're going to do a little bit of a test here. Everybody find a chair to sit on, and you must be seated upright. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So you know that when you go to defecate in the bathroom, you normally tend to pee at the same time? Well, here's a lesson for you. All these sphincters are reflexively connected to each other. So what most people are usually familiar with is the anal sphincter muscles. So today we're going to do root locking from Tantra. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit up and you're going to hold and squeeze and tighten your anal sphincter muscle and hold it there for 10 seconds. Yes, this is actually happening. We're doing this on a show. Starting now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tighter. Come on. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and release. How many of you made it to the 10 seconds before it tried to release itself?
Raise your hands. Go to that audience participation button and hit raise your hand.
Nice. So, I mean, collective tightening. How many of y'all made it to 10 seconds? Okay. Second test. Sit up straight. There we go. For the next 10 counts, you are going to tighten as hard as you possibly can and release. 1, squeeze and hold and release. 2, squeeze really tight and release. 3, squeeze and release. 4, squeeze and release. Is it getting to you guys now? 5, squeeze and release. 6, squeeze.
Squeeze
And
it.
release. 7, squeeze, release. 8, squeeze, release. 9, squeeze, and release. Last time, really as hard as you possibly can, squeeze and hold.
Like a guillotine.
And release it. And just relax your posture. Now, tell me, was that hard for you guys? That was the hardest workout, wasn't it? The internal workout is brutal, isn't it?
Yep.
Let me know in the chat room, how many of you guys made all 10 of those squeezes at the same level of contraction?
And who orgasmed?
Is David breaking up for anyone else? Yeah, I want to know how many of you guys out there, men, women, any of you, right, held those contractions at the same level. Because if you did this properly, a heat would have been developing in your abdominal floor. Okay, a kind of heat develops in your abdominal floor. Then you know you're doing it correctly. Let me tell you what that does for you. The 2 exercises I just gave you. When you, as a woman, when you come, it'll be a lot more intense if you practice it. Okay, because these are the muscles that initiate the contractive reflex. Okay, it will be a lot more intense. That's the first thing, because these sphincters are reflexively connected. If you are a man, you might actually last longer if you can hold it, right? Now, I saw a little earlier on in the chat, somebody says, think about grandmas and garbage bins. But what if garbage bins turn you on in the middle of a sex act? Yeah. What if they turn you on? We're going to do root locking. Actually, later on in the show, we're going to do another exercise from Hatha Yoga called Uddiyana Bandha. For those of you, which is navel lock.
So, David, we got 3 minutes, and then we're going to take our 10-minute break. Do you want to take it now, or do you want to just finish up what we got here?
It's up to Christine. Christine, would you like to learn? Would you like to teach the audience Uddiyana Bandha right now?
It's totally up to you. And I just want to add one little thing in here because it just came to my mind where if a woman is doing something with her man, she can help stop him from coming by, if she's got her hand on his cock and actually pulling the testicles down and pulling up on the cock at the same time. And so just opening that right up can sometimes keep him from coming. I just wanted to offer that.
You will only see it here on this show. You only see this on the show.
We will get someone to do infographics for the show.
we will. We're not gonna demonstrate that live on air.
If you are an artist and would like to do the infographics for the shows, please contact David info@unifiedhealthsystems.com.
Okay, for those of you who want to do Uddiyana Bandha, it's quite simple. Just sit up. Okay, it's quite simple. So, locate your belly button. Just put your finger in there. Don't tickle or do anything weird. All right, I know some of you out there are like, oh, what is David asking us to do now? Right, just locate, just stick your finger. Everything underneath your belly button, draw back in towards your spinal column. Everything underneath that finger, draw it back in and hold it. Yes, I know you guys are feeling that. Okay, very simple exercise. You hold and release it. Now, here's what we're going to do. You know how belly dancers do the little wave thing with their stomach? Oh, yeah. Well, it starts from these muscles right here. So what we're going to do is draw it down and up. Draw it down and release it above your finger. Pull it back in and release it above your finger in a wave-like pattern. See if you can make that wave happen. Okay, that belly dancing exercise is actually useful for the women out there because sex is not whatever you see outside yourself. The mechanics of sex, the legs, the glutes, the abdominals, these are just the outside parts. The real pleasure from sex happens inside with the various muscle groups that are responsible, for want of a better word, squeezing and contracting around your partner's organs. Okay, whether it be a finger, whether it be a penis, these muscles change the level of sexuality and how an individual orgasms. So, Andrew, if you're going to take us to break, I'm going to ask you guys to do some homework for me on the break. And we're going to give you homework to do tonight when the show is ended, by the way. We're gonna give you guys some homework for those of you who are in relationships, right, Christine? We're gonna give them some homework.
You bet.
Okay. For those of you
for yourself and for your partner.
For yourself.
We want feedback.
It involves this kind of homework, right? So anyway, we're gonna give you guys some homework when the show is over. But Andrew, you guys take us away for our break. It's about that time.
Yes. All right, Jen, why don't you go ahead and take us on a break? We'll be back in about 10 minutes, everyone. Go ahead and figure out some questions to put in the chat. We are going to be actually taking callers and opening up the conversation that we have here. So if you all got the guts and you can do some Kegel exercises on the breaks, build up your energy to ask a question via chat or call in. All right, Jen, go ahead and take us away on our break.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Chris Ray Chappell, and I'm going to be teaching in Aniki, Barbados from the 11th of October for 3 days, an intensive on Hunyuan primordial Qigong. This is a classical energy work set, which is primarily meant to open up all of the energy pathways of the body and to actually get you into your essence. Now, the idea of this set is it's going to open every single joint, muscle, every bit of connective tissue, the sinews, the organs, the spine, access the blood flow to the brain, creating a homeostasis. Now, Qigongs classically are meant for either health, power development and strength, and often for meditation. So the application of this set is broad ranging. So I'd like to welcome you there. Hopefully you can make it for the 3 days. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy teaching it and sharing what I have and to see who turns up. So I'd like to see you there. Thanks very much. Bye.
Baby steps for adults, drug abuse. What is drug addiction? Am I an addict? Who does drug addiction really harm? They can hurt your sense of judgment, decision-making, memory, and ability to learn. They can hurt your loved ones and so many others around you. Drug addiction is a disease which can be cured. Our Baby Steps program can provide the information you and your family need to overcome this illness. Online access to professionals working in the field of addiction, webinars and group counseling for those battling this addiction, full instruction to help you first understand this disease and how to cope with it. Join us today. We're here to help. Baby steps for adults, codependency. I can't live with or without you. I just want to look good for you. I would do anything for you. All popular words to famous songs. But guess what? They all indicate someone in a codependent relationship. Codependency is an addiction to another human being. You will see a strong relationship between codependency and negative physical side effects, which can manifest in violence towards your spouse or partner. If you're in a codependent relationship, you may need help. Join us today and free yourself from this addiction. Baby steps for adults, sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is a real problem in our societies. Every year, thousands of children are abused. These children constitute the most vulnerable members of our society. However, sexual abuse is also a real problem among our adult population. It can be violent and unwanted within family groups, as well as extreme harassment at the workplace. We can help. With online access to trained professionals working with victims of abuse and sexual assault. Webinars and group counseling for those suffering from the trauma and struggling to make sense of their lives. Full instruction to help you overcome the trauma and how to detect and assist other victims. Protect yourself and your loved ones. Join us today. Baby steps for adults, communication. Hey there. Are you reading this? Do you understand me? Oh, great. Then we're communicating. So what is good communication? Expressing exactly how you feel. Being personal and one-on-one. A simple touch or gesture of love. And what is poor communication? Screaming and shouting. Belittling others. Violence or verbal abuse. Would you like to learn to be an effective communicator? Join us today. Oh, bye now.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It is freezing cold here, but it is hot in this chat room. All right, everybody. Welcome back, Christine. Welcome back, David, to our next hour of supremely intelligent sexual conversation that isn't just here to eroticize us, but to educate our erotic capacities. Welcome back, David and Christine. Yeah, you're muted. Jen, I think you got to unmute them.
Hello, how are you?
Great. We're doing wonderful. So let's delve deep into the next layer here. I have a question here from somebody on Skype to me relating to homosexual person that wants to begin experiencing women. Any suggestions for them? They're not a bi person in any way, shape, or form. It has just reached a point where this person wants that experience, but has zero experience with women, just all with men.
So you're gonna throw that out?
Am I or you? What did you say?
Yeah, you go ahead, Christy.
Well, I think that's amazing to be able to explore and really check out what might be possible. Make sure to find people that are really open. Whenever I think of stuff like that, I always want to make sure that there's not a lot of shame. So it's really important to have people that are open-minded, so that you don't have to cover up anybody or any part of yourself of where you've been or what you're doing. And that would be my recommendation right off the bat.
Okay. And I got another question here. I got flooding in via WhatsApp here. 1 second here. This is from Keto. He's a Japanese person and has been experiencing a lot of Japanese videos that have trained him the wrong way. And what can you do to help a person who's been video trained but wants to be humanly trained? And he understands that you do a layer of trauma release. Is there something specific for people who've been overexposed to porn?
Andrew, I think he might also mean hentai. If he's Japanese.
Yeah.
It's a sort of cartoon porn where women are extremely over-sexualized. And it's usually tied to there's usually a storyline around it. So I just want to jump in here. If you are sexually trained on hentai, your expectations for the average woman are going to be way too high.
He's a drawer of it, so he does the artwork for it and has been doing it since a very young age. So,
he actually
his
draws.
level is way up there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he draws idealized women. Off the top of my head, you're going to have to rework your expectations when it comes to women. You have to understand that all women's bodies are quite beautiful in their own right. But what I would like you to probably do is actually find yourself, if you have the means or whatever, around a lot of naked bodies. Okay, full immersion into the nakedness, and probably that will help you. Remember that hentai is a fantasy in the mind. Okay, you can't expect that from regular women. Their bodies are not going to be like a hentai drawing. Okay, it just won't be. And if you're looking for that hentai personality, that's like 0.00001% of the world's population, and it's usually cosmetic. So there's been a lot of dysfunction with regard to women in terms of them changing their bodies, as Christine was saying earlier on, to resemble the Cosmo figure. Actually, Christine and you and I have had a lot of discussions about that. I call certain women Tiffany's, and I call them Tiffany's specifically because of a movie I watched some years ago. You remember? Was it Clueless? It was Clueless? Or anyway, idea of the blonde Lululemon wearing, right, woman who goes to yoga classes and so on. This is an idea that magazines have put into women's heads. It destroys their concepts of self. Everybody wants to look like that stock person, okay? When they look good by themselves, just as they are. So they go to the hairdresser, they go to the plastic surgeon, and so on. That will not make your sex life better. Actually, your lack of confidence will turn off your partner a lot more. Okay, it doesn't matter how good you look or how bad you look. What actually is important is how you perform sexually in bed and the confidence that you bring to it. Okay, so let me give you the women out there who are listening and the men out there too some advice on both sides of the fence. For the men, do not expect a body that is perfect. Okay, expect a body that is functional. Okay, expect a body that is functional. Okay, you will like a certain kind of body. You want it blonde, you want the boobs big, you want the ass shaped a certain way, but she's not going to be able to mow the lawn, and she's not going to play volleyball with you on the beach, right? So if you're expecting to live in a bedroom, yeah, okay, fine. Expect a body that is functional. For the women out there, you look good as you are. Augment the things that you have been brought into the world with through your own efforts naturally, and raise your confidence level. Okay? If you think you're living in a world of men who like a certain kind of look and you're trying to aspire to that look, what I can tell you, you're so sadly mistaken. There's nothing more off-putting than a woman who has no confidence in herself. There's nothing more off-putting than that. Okay, some men do like women who are completely submissive, who hang their head down, but most men don't. They don't. Okay, they will not like that. Okay, a woman with no confidence will not stand the test of time. So put on the red dress. It doesn't matter how you look. Just look at yourself in the mirror. Don't try to do anything false with yourself. And walk out there as yourself, and you'll see how just your energy alone draws men towards you. Okay? You don't have to look perfect. That is a fallacy, and it's actually a damaging fallacy to a lot of women, Andrew. What is your take on that?
Mine or Christine?
Both of you guys.
Well, anybody that's objectifying the woman's body solely for objectification is misplacing their mind and their heart. Sexuality has to have a cerebral heart space awareness to it, where the mind is a part of a strategy that uses sensuality for stimulation at an extended period of time. So stimulation creates chemical attraction, and then the mind becomes cerebral strategy. Then the heart connects to the heart, and the vaginal parts begin to secrete the fluid, the pheromones come forward. There's a whole magical process to that also. And when you ignore all that stuff and solely on the physical, you divest yourself from all of the other processes and solely have that single look that will never pay exactly what it is that you're looking for as a gratification journey. You got to get out of that instant gratification. And so many men and women are stuck on the instant gratification of sex versus the buildup that is a fulfillment over longer periods of time, more than a gratification.
Christine, you want to chime in here?
Well, I think you both said some really great things. And I think what I would add to that is just the illusion that women have to be a certain way or men have to be a certain way. And when we have told ourselves to have this illusion, then you're not living in your own reality anyway. And so the act of connection with somebody, the act of the actual sexual connection isn't going to fulfill you. So again, I think it really does come down to knowing thyself and knowing what what's really inside. What do you actually, what's going to bring you some pleasure? What are you willing to actually explore within somebody? What walls are you willing to take down?
Mhm.
Are you willing to look past the perfect illusion to actually have some real heart connection? And a lot of people, that would be a struggle.
Exactly. So to our hentai friend, I suggest that you learn women's bodies, or you relearn them, because hentai will never bring you as close to the real thing as experiencing a connection with another human being. Okay, there was actually an article a couple of years ago. The guy who married his blow up doll, his Barbie doll. Did you guys remember that one?
Yes.
He married
Yep.
the doll.
It's a robot, not a doll, that he built from the ground up.
So he built the woman.
Yes.
He built the reproductive.
Yeah.
So what are you guys' views on the new trend, the new automated sex robots that are being that people are trying to suppress because they know, like, if men get their hands on sex robots,
I think they're quite creepy.
Why do you think they're creepy?
Because there's no life force in it. And in my view, I'll use a harsh word, it's almost necrophilia, even though there was never life in it to begin with. But the particular gentleman that grew it, grew the intelligence in it, grew the skin tone in it, and it was his fulfillment to create that thing. So I think in the sex industry, because beings are dehumanized so often, that the ultimate submission is to have no life force in it.
It must be kind of funny because there was another documentary on a man who has a wife, but he also built a sex robot. Christine, you familiar with those?
No.
Okay, so this sex robot, it has genitalia. It's made out of a synthetic, which is supposed to mimic a woman's genitals. You know what it would be missing? It would be missing that energy, that transmission. You can't, well, I suppose you can make a circuit with a robot if you pour enough water in the circuitry.
He added magnetic circuits and warming scenarios in it so it could feel, you could warm, and I mean, he went all out. It was like a $600,000 sex robot that he built.
Yeah. I have to say it's a leap in terms of human accomplishment. He was really, really motivated to build this woman to his specifications. Thankfully, not everybody has those skill sets. If everybody did, we might have our time on their heads as well, right? Or money, actually, to do something like that, or else we would have a bit of a crisis on our hands. I would think so. But I do believe that when you see this level of, how should I say, distance from the human experience, I think what we're seeing as of the last 10 years or so, people tend to be going for the artificial more than the natural experience, because relationships are hard. And in today's society, everything has to be fast and it has to be gratifying. So people are finding ways to find quick and easy relationships that are non-stress and are just easy. So I do believe that in the future we're going to see a lot more of this kind of dysfunction, and I hesitate to call it dysfunction because what he had accomplished, Andrew, is actually quite interesting. I mean, his argument is that if there were 1 million of these robots, then there would be a lot less rape. So that's a good argument. By that same token, if there were 1 million of these robots, there would be a lot less relationships. A lot of people would be turning up late for work. These kinds of things would happen. So,
their dummy girlfriends would be calling them with drama, pre-programmed drama, so they could get out of work.
Yeah. But he had created quite something that that was a wonder to behold. A robot that had personality and had sensors on it that responded to touch. He had like about 1 million sensors in that thing, huh?
Yeah, yeah, some crazy amount, yeah.
It's like he had about 1 million sensors in that thing, and that took a lot of effort. Sarkis, if you are in the chat right now, that would be your next project.
I got another good question from the chat here. Just 1 second here. Role play. This is from Irene, a great caller.
Mm-hmm.
Role playing is another subject that tends to pervert sexual relationships and forces spiritual non-consensual engagement with another being that comes with a lot of spiritual issues and entanglements. Important subject to discuss that usually people in sexual community consider healthy. We don't teach it as healthy to our clients.
Why is that? Why is that, Irene? Actually, Jenny, could you get Irene in on this chat, please? Is it possible? Irene, you willing to talk to us? Irene?
She can't talk. She's at work.
Okay. Oh, can we call you then, Irene, and we can talk at work? So, actually, let's get somebody in on this kind of discussion. Jenny, you want to bring somebody in? Anyone?
Yeah, Jenny, let's have her. Go ahead, Jenny. Pick somebody from the wheel of callers.
Okay, let's have Barbara. Okay, you're now unmuted.
Barbara, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Where are you calling from today?
I'm in Oregon.
Welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I certainly wasn't expecting this. How's it going?
It's going very good. We are pushing everybody's envelope because we're at a time where everything that's going on in the world, we all need a release from the global media machine that's spewing out lies and fabrications and getting into a human truth that everyone can connect to again.
Well, I love it. It's great. Okay.
For Christine or David?
Well, when I first tuned in, Christine was talking about the jade egg. And I found that really interesting. Is there a particular, I mean, clearly they're called jade eggs for a reason, but does it have to be jade? Can it be rose quartz? Is there a particular stone that does it more than others?
That's a great question. Nice to hear you, Barbara. Jade is usually the go-to, but you can use rose quartz. You can use really any kind of crystal or any
black tourmaline. Tourmaline, not something you should be using in there.
Right.
Or selenite, sorry.
Right, exactly. But they have to be genuine, like they have to be geared to be able to go internal, because if there's a crystal that has any kind of quality of porousness to it, it's not hygienic. So there are really good places that you can get that.
Okay. Something else that you had mentioned was not knowing exactly what you need in terms of sex. And I think for me, I've gone through a little bit of a process in the last 2 years of kind of getting out of a depression, and that certainly affects your sexual energy. Moving around a lot, being with a partner for an extended period of time, and just kind of losing that vibe between two people. And getting back into it has been a little difficult, to say the least. When I'm ready and willing and excited to kind of venture out of our comfort zone, it's been a little bit more difficult to appease him or appeal to him. Do you have any suggestions for that?
And so I just want to clarify, when you say appease him, what does that mean to you?
Getting the interest peaked has been difficult. And I believe his name is Dave, said something previously about confidence is everything. And certainly when you are struggling with your own mental health issues, confidence can be lacking. So as that's been returning and I'm getting, feeling myself more, it's been difficult to get him on board. Like, I don't feel wanted by my partner.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear you saying is you're not feeling wanted. And are you also saying that you are the one that is needing to do the instigation?
Yes.
Okay. And can I ask why?
You certainly can ask why. I don't know that I have a particular answer. I think for me, I feel that it is my duty to do the due diligence, as I'm kind of the one who has put the pressure on the relationship with the difficulties of life and things like that. And as I begin to come back into my power, so to speak, and my sexuality, it has been difficult to, like I said, get him on board.
Beautiful. So I just want to celebrate that you are coming back into your sexual power and even coming into the curiosity. So remember how I had said that there's 5 different stages we go through. One can be resting. Sounds like you were resting for a while. You did some moves, or a move. Healing. You had, some stuff happening with your own, with your like with depression. And so just giving yourself a little bit of a, just taking a breath. I mean, you're coming into this curiosity and expecting yourself to be in this adventurous stage where everything should be working. And you should know, how to approach, and you should know how to be able to go right past all of the emotional aspects that have been loaded within the relationship from this last 2 years. So I just want to really just give you kind of a hands up that you're even where you're at. So my question is there a possibility that you could have a conversation with your partner where you could say, this is what I'm wanting. This is what I'm curious about. I would really like to start engaging here again. And I know in the past I don't know what your story is, but it may have been a struggle. But just actually getting him on board with the communication so that when you do try to instigate with him and he's not reciprocating, then you're not taking it as a personal hit to this beautiful kind of sexuality that is starting to come back online.
Well, you kind of hit it right on the nose by saying, I do feel that, what am I trying to say? Like, I feel bad when I get turned down, shamed. And it's kind of something that gets internalized and then snowballs into this whole thing of, well, I'm crazy. Of course you wouldn't want me, or, like, I'm fat today or something like that, even though that's really never been the case. But you know how a woman's brain just kind of snowballs with that sort of interaction. And I do feel a lot of shame in myself when I get turned down. Do you have any advice for that?
Mm-hmm. I think that you're speaking for a lot of people across the board when it comes to shame around being turned down. And so I just want to again reiterate that this is not just on your end. This is a relationship that has 2 people in it. And so you are not the sole person to be instigating. And so I would offer, please do have a conversation with this human that you're sharing your life with, and saying, okay, I'm coming into a place where I'm wanting to explore with you. I'm wanting to explore, and I need you to let me know when that's a possibility. So for some people who, and I don't know what the story is for the 2 of you, I don't know that, I don't know the background, but he might have felt shut down, so to speak, or that he's come towards you many times, and he didn't have the reciprocation that he wanted. So he might have some stuff there too, but just to have a conversation so that when you are playing in the sexual energy realm and you are trying to get some something ignited, that you're not going to get shamed, because a conversation, you're not as vulnerable typically as if you're naked and you're coming to your partner. So I would suggest to have an actual conversation that this is where you're at. You're coming out of this kind of resting, healing stage more into the curiosity and wanting to have sexual experiences with him. Is he online? Is he willing? Because he might not be willing. He might be in a resting state. Who knows?
Right. And you know, certainly, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and really starting to pull apart that this is not personal in terms of your shame. Like, it does not mean that you're fat, you're this, you're that. It absolutely does not mean any of those things. He is responsible for how he feels within this. And it is not a reflection of who you are or who you need to be or anything like that. And I really do celebrate this aliveness that's coming in and wanting to explore.
So this is sort of a far jump, and thank you so much for your feedback. And this is for whoever. But when I first got into a relationship with this man, it's been about 10 years now, I found out that I had herpes. There has never been any physical symptoms in the 10 years that we've been together, but it's like certainly this dark like thing that exists, that sometimes I have a lot of guilt around. And clearly when we're talking about sexual interaction, we have to think about transmitted diseases, etc. Is there any sort of spiritual reasoning for herpes? I mean, it's like 90% of the population has it. It's not something that they test for, and it's just not something that's really talked about, you know?
Yep. In terms of the spirituality part of it, I'm just going to put that on a sideline for a second, because I think the real question, or the real thing here, is actually the silence and the shame, because you nailed it right on the head. There is so much shame around STDs, and especially around herpes, and it needs to stop. It absolutely needs to stop dead in its tracks, because as you said, there are so many people walking around with all kinds of different things. And it does not mean that we are fundamentally bad, broken, fucked, or anything like that. Absolutely not. So to start having real conversations about this when it's we need to start having conversations and speaking about it like it's not some taboo or veiled, or, you know, we have to feel like we're the odd man out. Absolutely not. So I just want to say, you are not alone. Absolutely not alone. You are not alone in having a hard time speaking about this to your partner. But you will gain so much of your own sexual vitality and force if you can start to have conversations with this that don't have as much shame attached to it. And the only way to do that is to start talking. Shame loves secrecy. So if you start to bring it out into the light and actually have these conversations, it will start to demystify this thing that is so awful. It's not awful. It's not a problem. I mean, you can do some precautionary stuff. There's, you know, it doesn't dictate who you are. You can still be a massively, beautifully erotic being with herpes.
Can I jump in here on this discussion? Barbara, is it okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Barbara, Christine gave you the absolute correct advice here. When you are dealing with your partner, I need you to have you need to do a little bit of a preparation here. You need to say we need to have a discussion, and we need to be open and honest, okay? And this kind of thing is very important when it is that you're going to have that level of discussion. You need to be aware that your partner, I don't know who he is or who she is, that person may not be spiritually aware. So some of the stuff that you might say might have unintended consequences. So you need to do the prep first. You need to say something along the lines of, hi, I love you. We've been in this relationship for God knows how long. We need to have a serious discussion about our relationship. And before we have this discussion, we need to make a few rules, kind of like a safe word. I see people are talking about BDSM in the chat room, so we're going to have a conversational safe word. We need to talk about our sex life, and we need to talk about it in an open and honest manner. I am becoming more sexually aware of myself. I would like to engage with sex. I need to know what's going on with you, okay? And in speaking to him in this way or her in this way, when you speak to that person, you need to come to them from a place of safety so that they can express themselves. Okay, please understand that not all of these conversations will end well, okay, because you might find out something that you don't want to hear. But you also have to make the agreement in yourself that everything is on the table, because Christine said something that is very, very important, okay? Okay, shame loves secrecy. And the little things that we don't tell each other are the things that will damage your relationship. You could be in a relationship with someone. The hardest thing to do is to be clear, because people's feelings are part of that equation. But when it is that you are clear with someone about what your needs are, and the person is clear with you about what's happening, as Christine said, that person could be resting as well, right? But what is happening to you right now is that you feel rejected. Am I correct, Barbara?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to have to talk to that person and say, I feel rejected. You need to be vulnerable that way. What is going on? What can we do about it? Always speak from the position of what can we do about it? Okay? Because don't just come off as complaining. Always phrase your needs and wants. This is what I need. What can we do about it? It invites the person to make suggestions which may be helpful to you, suggestions that you wouldn't even have thought of. So, and that would be my take on it. Andrew, if you need to come in here, that's fine. I think Andrew's gone right now. But Christina, I guess I'll defer back to you as well.
Yeah, no, I think that you really nailed it.
Well, thank you both. This has been a really good talk. You know, sometimes when you think about how to enhance your sexual relationships, you think a little outside the box, like maybe inviting somebody else into the bedroom or doing something like that. And then you kind of feel like, oh, well, if we're not in a good place, like we can't really move forward with that. And especially when there's sort of that deep-seated issue of, you know, a sexual transmitted disease on the table, you know, it kind of convolutes things quite
Barbara,
a bit.
I also want to say something because I didn't address this. Barbara, you have herpes, and that is nothing to be ashamed of at all. But I do believe that there's a stigma in society where STDs are concerned, as Christine was saying. But I'm quite sure you didn't go out there thinking, oh, today I'm just going to get herpes. Okay? It is a reality in your life. I assume that you've taken steps to control it. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, there's been, thankfully, my partner has never had any symptoms in the 10 years that we've been together.
Does he know
But
about
it's still
it?
something that I carry. Oh, yes,
Yes.
of course. Totally. Yeah, totally.
I got one side question. The nature of your depression, is it around the sexuality, or were there other factors before the relationship that's created the depression?
It was certainly the other factors, yes.
And do those factors have anything to do with mental abuse, not necessarily physical abuse for a young kid? Verbal,
oh, I'm sure.
Verbal, somebody demeaned and diminished your capacity to be you?
Oh, I'm certain of it, yeah.
So it's fair to say that part of your next journey in a spiritual practice is understanding that you can see the genital herpes as a way of creating the next level of spiritual hygiene for yourself, because a form of suppression and diminishment and demunionization has been put on you as a trauma that created this depression, and that energizing yourself by saying, I am worthy, that I do have a powerful spirit inside me, I can use my sexuality to conquer any depression issue, that an orgasm itself can erase decades worth of depression and self-demunionization. And it's a prayer journey that only you can do. Okay? And it's not necessarily something you want to engage your partner in. This is something you need to do as the soul confidence builder in yourself. I like to call it as sending our light out to the edge of our bedroom. So when somebody comes into the bedroom, the light that you're trying to share is like a grow light, and you're constantly trying to grow things with it. And right now your light has been dimmed, and you got to practice raising that light, and just see the medium as the STD of that's just the dimmer, and you can turn your light on. People have cured themselves of cancers by mind alone. Okay.
Do not let your STD be a deterrent of your to your sexuality, Barbara.
Yes.
Definitely. That's just a small thing. Okay, it's a part of your life. All right. Think of that STD, that herpes, like a mole or a wart. It's there. You don't like it. Okay. But it is just as insignificant as that. And then you move on. You have it under control. If you have it under control and you are careful and you are responsible with your sex partner or your past sexual partners or your future sexual partners, right? You don't let this be the be all and end all. I am Barbara with herpes. No, you're just Barbara.
That's right.
That's all you are.
Yeah,
you are Barbara, and we respect you as such.
And whatever baggage Barbara is carrying, it's time for Barbara to look at that baggage as burdens that you carry, and you don't need to carry them as burdens anymore. Mom and dad taught you how to carry their burdens by not being the right form of mom and dad that you needed in that moment. And this is not really about trauma release as much as it's just forgiving yourself for carrying their baggage right now. Because it's your sexuality, not theirs. Did you ever walk in under your parents having sex and it really diminish you?
I remember walking in. So my family history is pretty crazy, but I did walk in on my mother. But my mom and dad had a illegitimate 25-year relationship with 2 kids, and there's 5 kids total. So as you can see, my dad was married the entire time. But yes, I do remember walking in on my mother, but there was some sexual abuse in the family, and probably generational as well.
Was the abuse on you?
There was some on me, yes, that I only recently have actually got out of my system and told somebody about. There was never penetration or anything like that, but it was definitely there. So
part of your depression and your sexuality that you're dealing with now as you're trying to reemerge and being a sexual being is shedding off what happened in the past.
I have one question for you, Barbara. Are you angry at this? Do you experience anger?
I experience anger, but not necessarily around this particular topic. I think it's more of a guilty sort of feeling when it comes to this.
What does that mean exactly for you?
I'm not angry at myself for what happened, just more embarrassed.
Barbara.
Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. Barbara, you could put the anger down. It's not doing you any good, first of all. My suggestion to you is you see life as it comes. You're going to get knocked down in life. Herpes is knocking you down. Okay? You got to get back up. Okay? You got to get back up. You got to, I was going to say get back up on that horse, but then that would create a riding image. And yeah, but you understand what I'm what I'm talking about. You got to get back up. You got to get back up, and you got to move forward. Okay, this herpes thing. Lots of people have herpes. Lots of them. The statistics are overwhelming. Okay, all right. And if every one of these people with herpes held a lot of embarrassment and shame around it, it's already happened. It's here, and it could either teach you or it could break you. You have a choice. But clearly, it's not breaking you because you're awake again. So don't second guess it. It's a gift. Become awake and enjoy your life fully as a sexual being. Don't put it down just because there's this little hiccup in the works, because it is a little hiccup, huh? It's not a big thing. Okay? You will live towards the end of your lifespan. I understand that you care about your future partners and so on, and what they might think and what they don't think. Listen, if somebody can't accept you fully as you, herpes and all, then they can't accept you and they are not worth it. Seriously. Okay? Because I'm talking to you. I have no judgment for you, but then on this show, we have no judgment for anybody. Okay? And there are lots of people out there who would really, really like somebody like you who was actually that conscientious too. You're beating yourself up for no reason. You are. Think about that.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's some theme music for you. Chumbawamba. You get knocked down and you get back up again. Never gonna beat you down. You get knocked down and you get back up again. Never gonna beat you down. Okay?
That's funny. I actually have that on my phone right now for some reason.
Synchronicities are everywhere.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure I have 100,000 more questions, but thank you guys very much, and I know that you don't have much time left, so.
Thank you so much for calling in, Barbara. You're a wonderful teacher for a lot of people out there. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, we're nearing the top of the hour here. So, Christine, do you want to give a way for people to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Just say it, Christine.
Email. What was that?
We're going to share this. Contact us at info@unifiedhealthsystems.com, and we'll forward all the mail to Christine.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yes.
That works.
Okay, so Andrew, I see you talking about a show, and there was talk about BDSM and so on. So I'm just going to say something because we're going to have another show on this at some point in time, and probably Christine will be there. And we're actually planning a show on sexuality alone, where we'll be bringing the coaches from Erotic Blueprint together, and you guys could go to town on asking them whatever you want, right? So, yeah, I met a lot of these Erotic Blueprint coaches, and they're eager to speak to you guys and so on. So, what is my take on BDSM? In my hand right now, I have string. And we're not going to go through that today, but basically, what is my take on it? Is it spiritually sound practice? Okay, so I have two feelings about this. A lot of people who are mentally dysfunctional are drawn to BDSM because they want to act out the violence that is inside their systems. Okay? Does that mean BDSM in and of itself is bad? I'm going to say probably not, because if it is between two, and you keep using that word consensual people, then is it necessarily bad? Because you see, when you are in a relationship with someone, you are there, that person is your teacher. For want of a better word, you are that person's guru, that person is your guru. You are learning about yourself. And that person can help you process the darkest parts of yourself if it is that you're willing to open up. Some people get into relationships halfway. They get into relationships in such a way that they're like, I'm going to hide this part of myself and I'm not going to give this part of myself. This is halfway relationship. A lot of you are guilty of that who are listening to my voice right now. Okay. A lot of people have in themselves a lot of trauma and so on. And I'm sorry to have to tell you guys that BDSM has actually been known to cure trauma.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually been known to cure trauma. I hate to have to tell you this because people act out the things that they actually want to go through. Actually, the name of our series is Sexual Healing. So from the point of view where you have people with mental issues getting the flogger with the barbed wire and beating people half to death, that is something completely different from the initial concept of what BDSM, for those of us who don't know, it's bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism. There can be a healing component to everything. If you take the purest view and you say, oh, all BDSM is bad, then you're going to get into a situation where you think all war is bad. Something good comes out of everything bad. In Latin, that concept is called essentia in contra sua. The essence of a thing is in its opposite. You could get bad things out of good intentions, and you could get good things out of really bad things. Okay? So, on that note, that is what I feel about BDSM, because I know for sure that it has cured a lot of trauma, not for David specifically, but for a lot of people. Okay? There's a lot of people who get to act out the things that they want. That are inside of them in BDSM that they wouldn't feel safe bringing out in any other way. So for those of you who watch 50 Shades of Grey, do not get fooled by the hype. It doesn't work that way. Okay, it's a movie. It's a movie. BDSM, some people experience love, especially if they have trauma at an early age, through different mediums. Okay, and like the concept, let's go one at a time. Bondage. That's what the string is for, by the way. We're going to do a little demo at the end of the show, right? And that'll be for the next show and not this show, right? Bondage. Bondage, the art of tying. So did you know that the Japanese has a whole art around tying of people called shibari? For those of you, yes, shibari, strawberry, correct. Yes, so the Japanese have a whole art form around it. For some people, it's art. So you're probably wondering, how does that end up in a sexual situation? Let's say you have a partner that's not necessarily understanding the concept of surrender, because sexuality is about the active state and the passive state as well. But that's a technical term. We're going to get into that in the next show, which Andrew apparently is planning for us. The domination. Some women, we had a caller in the last show who wanted domination from her husband. It shows that that person wants you so much. Domination is a sort of raw desire. The sadism and masochism is what basically people are that raises an eyebrow for a lot of people. And you have to couch that within the framework of sexuality. It is not a bunch of crazy, violent people beating each other to death. That's not what it is. Okay? I want you guys to have an open mind at everything, and you're wondering whether that fits into a spiritual environment. Okay, let me ask you a question. Would you rather meditate and try to process violence, or would you rather see the violence in the outside world and process it that way? Which one would you rather do? Because one of these methods is a lot faster than the other. Okay, you could go to the top of the Himalayas by yourself and sit down and process violence and domination and all that stuff, or you can just get it out of your system in a safe environment with someone you actually love. Your choice. Because it's in there, it's in all of us. Andrew, are we ready for the homework and the demonstration?
I think we are ready for our shibari explanation / Cub Scout knot moment.
Okay. So I'm going to teach you the hand knot today because, you know, it's that kind of show. It's a webcast. So a lot of you, everybody's like, oh my God. I'm going to teach you the hand knot. So this knot I just tied into. It's a long knot. And you want to restrict your partner. Why would you want to restrict your partner's movements? You may want to restrict your partner because your partner might misbehave. They might come too quickly. Yes, I'm clearly excited. Right. They might come too quickly. They can't behave. What does that mean? It means that you want to go down on them, but they just won't behave. They might
kick,
rebel, you know, this kind of stuff. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to teach you the hand knot. We're going to do it in the front and the back. So I doubled up this rope, first of all. Okay. And we have a loop knot here. And we're going to put it through here or here. It doesn't really matter, but you put it through here. I'm going to take the other end of that knot. I'm going to loop it through this because you don't want to cut off blood circulation, heaven forbid. That's a different kind of sex completely. And you're going to loop that knot through. Can everybody see that knot? Yeah. It's a loop knot. Okay. You don't want to cut off blood circulation. Then we're going to take it through and loop it around the hand like this. And you're going to loop it through the hand again. You may loop this as many times as you want. Be mindful of nerve clusters, correct? So you guys want this going to the front or the back. So you take this knot and you just loop it through. This is a simple hand knot that you're going to go through. You're going to go through here as well. For those of you who are seeing this, you thread it through. And you thread it through here. You can thread it through the fingers. And we have one tied David. And I'm not going to tie myself to anything, so you guys can forget about that. Right? Right?
We'll get you an in-studio dummy, David.
So you basically, the individual has something to grab onto the rope in their hands while they're being tied. And it's a very simple knot that anybody can learn. It's a very simple knot. So they're pretty much tied in a cross and their hands are like this and they're tied and there no nerves are being cut off. Now, before we continue, how can you make quick release knots? You can also make quick release. Yes, strawberry. Oh my God. I could tell I'm dealing with somebody who watches a lot of anime. Okay, so a quick release knot quickly. Stop outing me. Yes, correct. This is a quick release knot. Strawberry, you watching? Here you go. I looped it around the thumb. And this is a quick release here. And you loop it here, through the wrist, and through here, and back here, and you go up the back of the hand. Yes. Now, before we continue, quick release. This release, once I release this, everything comes apart, theoretically. Okay, so that's a quick release knot. Now, before we continue here, we're going to give you guys homework, but it's not going to involve tying for the very simple reason that I don't want your partners waking up tied up and wondering what's going on. Okay, get consent first. Get consent first before you do anything with your partners. Don't have people waking up and wondering what's going on. Okay, so speak to your partners and get some consent first. So, all right, so let's do some homework. Christine, you ready?
Go for it.
Okay, so the men who are listening to this, your homework for tonight, if you are in a relationship at this particular point in time, is you're going to have sex, and you're going to have sex, and you're not going to come 3 times. Go to the point of coming and stop. Go to the point of coming and stop. and go to the point of coming and stop one more time. And on the fourth time, you can release. It's just a simple test. That's a simple test. Let's test your discipline. Let's test. Okay? All right? Just test that thing. For the women who are out there, okay, your homework for tonight would be the discipline of the sphincter muscle discipline. So you're going to get your partner, because all of this revolves around sex, to enter you, and you're not going to do anything. You're just going to lay there and tense and release, and tense and release. Of course, your partner would have to cooperate with that concept, but he will have to learn the discipline as well. So please try that for tonight.
And it's not the dead fish pose.
So you're going to have to tense and release around your partner. It doesn't matter how big or how small your partner is. You're going to have to tense and release. Just what we taught, we spoke about. We're going to root lock right when you are in the sex act. Okay? And that's simple homework for today. Andrew, you were talking about some other show that we're going to do?
So we have our regular Saturday show. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. If we wanted to do a follow-up show, we can. And as well as, because I was thinking maybe we'd just do a Saturday night pajama party later in the evening. And it's something that we can do some really fun stuff with, really be educational. And since we got all this garbage going on in global media news, maybe we start a little Facebook whisper campaign and see who wants to talk about sex on Saturday.
I could see it now. Sex on Saturday. Yeah, we're gonna get a couple more of these erotic blueprints teachers. Some of our friends, Christine and my friends, and we're gonna get them in, and we're gonna have like a
pajama party.
A pajama party.
There we go.
Pajamas not mandatory. So, all right. So you guys, all right. You want to take us away, Andrew?
All right, everyone. Pay attention to your email, as well as Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Periscope, and anything else I didn't mention. And we may have this coming show this Saturday. If not, it'll be your normal Saturday show. Thanks a lot, everyone. We shall catch you on the next show. And don't forget your homework.
Okay. Bye,
Jen,
everyone.
Take us away.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.